Folks, one of the biggest Tesla and Nvidia bulls in existence, Gene Munster, was just on CNBC issuing a very urgent warning for Nvidia investors before earnings. I'm going to play the clip and then we're going to talk about it. Check it out.
You think the odds are skewed that Nvidia actually trades down on earnings. Why is that?
Last quarter, Jensen Huang said that they're going to have a lot of Blackwell demand, a lot of Blackwell revenue, specifically in calendar 24, and I suspect that that's going to be modest revenue. We're talking about a 3-month delay, and ultimately I think that for investors who are just hyper-focused on every minute of what this company is doing, that could be viewed as a slight negative. Also keep in mind the stock is up 30% over the last 3 weeks, just shy of 5% of its all-time highs. And so there's just a ton of noise around the quarter, but I think this Blackwell piece is probably the most important X factor about the quarter. And so that's kind of why I think that the stock is going to trade down modestly, but I don't think that stock action should be representative of the opportunity NVIDIA over the next couple of years. Investors are going to get hyper-focused this week, but it's ultimately going to probably miss what I still believe is the biggest opportunity we've seen in 20 years. I still think that we are in the early innings of a 3 to 5 year tech bull market that's powered by AI, and I think that many of these big tech companies are going to do well over the next couple of years as that starts to go. So yes, I think this is going to be probably a more difficult week for broader big tech, but I think that ultimately shares are going to recover quickly as investors come to grips with, I think, is a stronger AI trade than what many believe is today.
So as you know in my video, the bottom line always comes first. So don't click nothing, don't smash nothing, don't buy nothing. Here's the bottom line if you gotta go. Gene Munster basically says one simple thing. Short term, lots of volatility, maybe even a drop. Long term, massive opportunity. And I don't necessarily disagree with him. His thesis is based on the fact that people will be hyper-focused on the fact that the new Blackwell chip from Nvidia might be delayed, and that delay might push a lot of twitchy people who have no understanding of Nvidia to sell off because they're paper hands. That's essentially what Gene Munster is saying, but long term, it's a great company. Now, I'm not one to follow opinions just because somebody is a smart or an accomplished guy. I listen to everybody. I listen to Dan Ives, to Aswad the Modern, to Gene Munster, to every single person out there.
NVIDIA is maybe 28 times forward earnings, which is for the best, one of the most important companies in the world. It's not a high multiple. So
that NVIDIA seems to me to be Cisco of the next generation.
The only game in town is Jensen.
The stock has run so much into the quarter that it needs a $2 billion revenue beat. It also needs the revenue guidance to come in $2 billion higher than expected.
NVIDIA is an amazing company. Great growth, amazing cash flows, superb margins. But you're paying a premium price, even given all of those pluses.
Look, they're a victim of their own success. The stock's tripled in the last year and a half. So it's been a great thing to own. If the company executes perfectly for years to come, which of course they will not, the stock is overpriced.
Oh, and let's throw in a gigantic buyback because the company simply got too much cash to leave sitting in the bank.
There's 22 companies that are about to report earnings. Already 96% of companies have filed their earnings for this season. But there's one company this Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern that might take the entire market up or down with it, regardless of all these other companies that have beaten or have missed. None of this matters because on Wednesday, it's a whole new ballgame. First of all, I want to point out that I actually wrote a deep dive about this specific question to our community members on Patreon. And if you're not yet, might be a good time to sign up and read this newsletter I just released a couple hours ago. Let's talk about NVIDIA from an objective perspective. NVIDIA is right now the leader of the entire AI revolution. ChatGPT comes out, and then NVIDIA becomes the only game in town for infrastructure. They are the only ones who are making what people need to build their infrastructure around AI. And now everybody needs AI. You need AI whether you're in retail, IT, healthcare, any sort of industry needs AI. And these are the building blocks, and NVIDIA holds the keys. Right now, they're pretty much the monopoly. And that's why their revenue from data centers, which is their AI product, have gone 20x over the past 4 years. A few years ago, that was about 10% of the business. Right now, it's 90% of the business of NVIDIA. So it's a complete flip. Now, beyond the fact that the business have grown significantly, the numbers are phenomenal, right? The company's revenue is up 208% over the past year. Operating income is up 1,000% over the past year. Absolutely insane. Net income over the past year is up 800%. Cash is up 105%. And they've actually decreased their debt by 10%. And all of that with a forward PE of 34, which is identical almost to Google and Microsoft and Amazon and all these other companies. So they're not really trading in a massive, massive premium. De facto, looking at all these numbers, they're pretty reasonably priced, especially given the fact that they're kicking everybody's ass right now. Sorry, excuse my French, but you know what I mean. Now, look, here's the thing. Right now, these great numbers, if you couple it with the fact that about 66 out of 70 analysts who are covering Nvidia in mainstream media are positive, you add the fact that they had 6 consecutive triple plays. Triple plays basically means that they've beat their EPS, earnings per share, on revenue, and they've raised guidance. Imagine 6 times in a row doing that. That's a massive achievement, but also it puts a lot of expectation on Nvidia going into these earnings on Wednesday. The expectation is that revenue is going to be up 112%, and that EPS, earnings per share, is going to be up 125%. There's very little room for error here with Nvidia. You have to understand this. Now, I have no idea what happens. In all likelihood, Nvidia beats earnings and the stock runs to the moon. Probably, right? But should they miss, and I know this is a low probability event, but should they miss earnings this time around with all this mountain of expectations on their back, the consequences are going to be very harsh for Nvidia and for the rest of the market in general, especially tech companies. Now, there's a huge risk here short term because the correction that might come if they miss, even though it's a low probability event, are going to be so significant you can't ignore it. Now, here's the thing. Long term, for the next 3 to 5 years, there ain't nobody on this planet that says Nvidia isn't going to dominate and isn't going to generate massive amounts of cash flow, massive amounts of business, and ain't nobody here is saying that Nvidia isn't going to be dominant for the next 3 to 5 years. There's simply no alternative and no alternative in sight. But what some people are asking themselves right now is whether Nvidia, pricing-wise, have gone up too fast and needs to correct backwards. And I don't know what's going to happen after earnings. There's literally a 50-50 chance. Nobody knows. And if people are telling you because they've seen some lines on a chart, they see that they can tell where this thing is going to go before and after earnings, they're just bullshitting you. They're trying to sell you some sort of product, ignore, block, and move on. Nobody knows. I think there will be 2 types of investors going into Wednesday and coming out of Wednesday. I think traders are going to make a lot of money trading around earnings just because of the volatility. But long-term investors like myself will be divided to 2 groups going in and out of Wednesday. There's a famous saying, you always know how you step into the court of law, but you never know how you're going to step out. The same thing with these earnings. The type A are going to come in these earnings, and if the stock runs up, they're just going to keep buying. And if the stock drops, they'll buy even more because they understand this is going to be an opportunity. Now, the second type will be the more newer investors in the market, people who have joined over the past months, over the past year, and haven't really experienced a serious pullback. Once if Nvidia actually drops after earnings, the fear factor may push a lot of them to actually panic sell and sell right into the hands of investors like myself. And that's fine. But let me tell you what happens. If Nvidia, and I don't tend to talk a lot about short term, but in this segment, I'll do it just to kind of put your mind at ease. If you're a long-term investor, here's why you shouldn't be afraid. Not because of the next 3 to 5 years. Forget about that. That's a given. Everybody agrees that the next 3 to 5 years in Nvidia are going to be great. Why you shouldn't be afraid for the next 2 months? I would even go so far as saying why you shouldn't be afraid for the next month. Because here's the scenario that I see. Nvidia goes up after earnings, great. FOMO continues, all the hype continues, and then we wait for the correction next time. But if Nvidia drops, what's going to happen when Nvidia hits 110? What's going to happen when Nvidia hits 100? You know exactly what's going to happen because it's literally something that happened just a few days ago, just a couple of weeks ago. You literally saw what happens. When Nvidia drops to these prices, the dip buyers, they step right in because they understand that Nvidia at these prices is a steal. And any sort of dip that's going to be created by a bad reception of earnings, the Nvidia dip buyers are going to fill very, very quickly. So I wouldn't even be worried about Nvidia in the short term. If you're going to step into these earnings, make sure you understand that if there's a dip in Nvidia, it's going to be bought up quite quickly. Not even to mention the fact that the next 3 to 5 years for Nvidia is pretty much a shoo-in with them being a quasi-monopoly. Not even mentioning the fact that there's a lot of sideline money right now. $6.24 trillion waiting for a dip like this to actually put some money in play before it's too late. So make sure you understand that the next couple of days are going to be turbulent. Make sure you understand exactly what you do in each scenario. Have a game plan. Get some popcorn. Get your emotions out of the way. And just sit back, relax, and enjoy this. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.